the feeling and the effects of taking another life.
Yeah.
So don't need to get into like super specifics.
Okay.
But I am curious, and like I mentioned before, this is a lot of first for the podcast, is we've never had someone on that has been a police officer or in the military that has taken another life,
Sure.
that has talked about the effects of
Yeah.
that. And obviously you have taken a lot of lives for our country.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or correct me, but I'm trying to get in here. This is, like I said, this is the first time, but I kind of want to talk about like really briefly the effects of like taking someone's life for the mission for the country.
Yeah. So I'm sure that this weighs differently on different people. I think for me, I have no issues with the things that I've done in my career. When I was in special operations in the regular army, everything that I was involved in, I consider a righteous mission, and yeah, I mean, being a part of that. Yeah, I mean, essentially, when you're in a gunfight, it's either kill or be killed. And for me, um, it kind of breaks you down to a pretty basic level as a human being. Um, the effect that it had on me, I mean, I'm sure there's some type of effect psychologically, but, I maybe morally and everything else am good with everything that I've ever done downrange. Um, and again, I feel like the mission was righteous, like what we were doing, hunting other armed men. Um, I mean, that was all part of it, and when you do that, and when your life's on the line and your teammates' lives are on the line, um, that all comes with it, but it wasn't something that ever deterred me from doing it. Um, Probably the best way I can describe it is I didn't take pleasure in it, but I didn't, I didn't dislike it. It was part of the job, and kind of my way. And maybe this is just how I'm psychologically built, but a lot of things I take on, or I have a very kind of professional approach in the way that I kind of tackle those things in my own opinion. And I kind of view combat and, taking someone's life in the confines of that. And maybe that's how I make it okay with myself. But it certainly isn't something that keeps me up at night.
Okay. Is that kind of a common theme amongst the special operations community, do you think, with the mission sets that you guys have? Or have you experienced teammates having a tough time with maybe their first time experiencing that, or their first firefight, or anything along the lines of that?
Yeah, I mean, good question. I appreciate you asking. For me, my experiences with teammates, I think the most traumatic things have been losing Americans, whether it was losing a teammate or, guys that in the community. I certainly feel like that's been more impactful than guys being on teams and going out and, prosecuting targets, if you will. Um, I think you got to be a pretty righteous person to want to be in special operations. And if you didn't believe in what you were doing, you probably wouldn't be there in the first place. And when you're going after dudes that kill women and children and do a lot of things that morally I definitely have a problem with, like, again, for me, it doesn't keep me up at night at all.
Yeah.
And I'm good with all of it.
Yeah.
So.
And that kind of goes in with I know we talked about this earlier, but is with the moral injury.
Yeah.
Where it's like
you had to I made you read. I think we talked about moral injury, and I was like, can you read me the definition of that? Because I need to understand that a little bit better.
I needed to look it up myself too. And I'll pull it up here a little bit.
Yeah.
But and I appreciate you sharing that. And I know it's not like it's not a topic that really gets discussed much, because so I had neighbors growing up when I when I was first getting into the Marine Corps. I don't know if it was before or right when I got back from like boot camp, where they were Army 11 Bravos infantry, where
Yeah.
they got back from Iraq and Afghanistan, and I know they were in the shit.
Yeah.
But it's always like a weird question, a weird topic to bring up. Like how do you ask another human being, like, because you don't know what their reaction is going to be like, right? You don't know
Yeah.
if it's like traumatic, if it's still affecting them, or if they're totally okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of don't know what reaction you're going to get, and you're kind of tiptoeing around it like you're walking on eggshells. So I appreciate you being okay with me asking it and talking about it.
Yeah.
But that's also, it kind of correlates to how we feel asking if another service member or first responder is going to kill themselves.
Sure.
Or is going through a fucked up time where they
Yeah.
don't know where to go.
Yeah.
Like if you recognize that someone's not on their A game or they're not the same,
Sure.
you start to see people walk on eggshells and be like, do I ask Greg or Kurt if he's going through a tough time, and like, does he need anything? And sometimes you may ask, but you don't know what reaction you're going to get, or you don't ask at all.
Yeah. I would say that being a good teammate, like being authentic and caring about people, is really important. And that if you do see that, you should ask, because, having any kind of a reservation with it, even if you feel like it's going to be an awkward conversation, like that may be what that person needed to kind of drive whatever's going on in a different direction. So again, empathy, not being afraid to have that conversation. If you love what you do and you love the people around you, you'll be willing to have those conversations, and you have to. Those are honest conversations, right? And nobody escapes the effects of violence. All the things that you guys see as a first responder, what you see in combat, nobody escapes the effects of that. Now, how much it affects you on a scale, whatever measuring thing they use or whatever else. I mean, every individual person is different. People were raised differently. Their psychological makeup is different. Some people can take more than others, And I mean, yeah, there's this whole thing, right, that goes into leadership and knowing the people that you work with and being close and caring about one another. And as the closer you are to somebody, you're going to kind of know, what their capability is for withstanding a lot of that stuff, right? And I think, of course, there's an expectation that comes along with those jobs that you can just take it, right? But we all know that if you've done it for a long time or you've done it at all and seen some terrible shit, you probably need to talk about it, man. It doesn't mean, you got to talk about it all the fucking time.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But you might need to have a good sounding board to talk through something, and that's okay.